Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
It's sort of the way the sun rises. That's how we just set the lights for you. It's a beautiful Thursday morning here in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Kayode Okikele.
I'm Ayomakide. Good morning and welcome. Looks like one of those silhouettes.
Okay, interesting.
Well.
It looks like one of those ways that where you see now, you don't see now. Like, it happens on the front pages of the papers sometimes because you never really know what to expect.
Wow. What a linkage.
But yesterday, a lot of people thought they knew what they were going to expect this morning. And boy, are they right. But take a look at New Telegraph, for instance. Insecurity, FG threatens emergency rule in Anambra. Explains open grazing ban may drag southern states before Supreme Courts over VAT, PDP, Samba, others kick. You have to read it and know what the paper is talking about.
Samba.
I know. So yeah, it's a big focus on the front page here today. So you might need to just see how that is going to play itself out. Nigeria's debt stock to hit 40 trillion naira as FG set to borrow 6.258 trillion naira to finance 2022 budget deficit. FEC OK's proposal fixes $57 per barrel at 1.88 million barrels per day, 410 naira, 15 kobo to the dollar. That's the USD benchmark. Well, I know there are many questions. There usually always questions about this benchmarks, in terms of what they put there and what people's reality is. So sometimes you just wonder if they can, meet themselves halfway. Well, is this halfway enough? Well, several other perspectives wherein NCC is explaining certain things about the age restriction on SIM acquisition. It's all there for you on New Telegraph.
Well, if you take a look at the front page of a Daily Trust, this is what you find right there for you. IPOB killings, that's how Daily Trust actually captions this one. FG Mall's state of emergency in Anambra. Malami confirmed our worst fears, that's according to state government. Take order to Zamfara Katsina, APGA says. APC planning to rig, that's according to the PDP, and the ruling party, that's APC I believe, says they're living in the past, or APGA. It's hard to tell which ruling party. Is it a ruling party in the state or at the national level? Well, page 5 should have more details for you this morning. And that story about the 18 years age limit for SIM ownership is also on the front page. Mixed reactions as NCC sets 18-year age limit for SIM ownership. Others in draft regulation. So that gives you a picture. I heard it was some sort of an event that was not quite open to the media, but this is what we have from that one. It's a page 20 read. This one again, scores killed, houses burnt as gunmen attack Zamfara village. Yet again, we have these stories. And just one more. Nigeria, others to benefit as Google invests 410 billion naira in Africa's digital transformation. I know we've heard this for quite some time, digital transformation. Page 21 has more details. That's the Daily Trust.
I look at the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Lawyers, Afenifere Ohaneze, PDP, question FG's threat of state of emergency in Anambra. That's what you have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. The story is on page 5 of the paper. No rider. Seems like everything it's an all-in-one right there on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And so many others you find interesting. WHO approves first malaria vaccine. And guess what? There we have it. Finally. That's the Nigerian Tribune today.
All right, if we take a look at Vanguard newspaper today, look at the big lead on the front page of Vanguard here today. Okay, well, I can't seem to get that. Well, might as well just go. Do we have Tribune then? No. Okay, well, guys, I know what's coming up next. So you take which one is there now? All right.
That's the one that I was trying to take earlier. Lawyers Afenifere Ohaneze, yes, that's it. PDP question FG's threats of state of emergency in Anambra. The story is on page 5. WHO approves first malaria vaccine. That's it on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Yeah, the papers are really, rushing in right now. It's rush hour for papers, as it were,
Yeah.
so it's understandable.
We can have the Vanguard now, can't we? Okay, Anambra polls uproar as FG threatens emergency rule. Oh boy, they've got a lot of riders here. FG's threat unacceptable, unconstitutional. MBF smacks of hidden agenda. Mbazulike Amechi. Anambra not most insecure in Nigeria. Modo. FG should not treat Southeast in isolation. Ahamba. We reject any emergency rule in Igbo land. ADF. SANs tackle FG, say situation not ripe for such action. Government has started implementing it. Inter-society. Okay, you wonder what that means.
Well, the Attorney General just said, it can't be ruled out.
So, well, we need to see what inter-society is referring to. It's a verdict of failure. Afenifere, FG's consideration unacceptable. Can FG must retrieve Southeast from IPOB others. NEF. FG must not make the mistake OBJ made on Plateau. Others, ascribed to ACF. Emergency in Anambra over insecurity not necessary. Pandev. So, and then they see the conditions for emergency rule in also features there, so you might want to check that out as well today. So, well, that is the big one. Well, look at the back page of Vanguard here today. FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 race. It's victory or nothing, says Raw. But just before we do that, okay, well, we can take the Mr. and Mrs. as well. Mrs. just telling Mr. Honey, your dear mother-in-law will be here to spend the weekend with us. Let me apologize in advance about her insistent loud singing. And Mr. says, oh, that's okay. The last time she was here, I noticed that when she sang, rats and cockroaches and mosquitoes disappeared.
She must have a sonorous voice,
Oh, yeah, so... Oh, boy.
Okay, well, the Daily Times is next.
What more can we below the belt?
On a lighter note, really. Well, the Daily Times has this one on the Anambra governorship
Shell
poll.
talks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and you see there, Obiano government, PDP can, others kick as FG threatens to invoke emergency rule. You'd understand that this one is a big story. Just about how many days now? A month to that election in Anambra State. And is this part of the usual election fever, as they say? Well, we'll definitely take a look at that on the show this morning. And on top of that, the talk about borrowing 6.258 trillion naira to finance the 2022 budget deficit. That's according to FEC. Approved 16.39 trillion naira appropriation bill proposal. So we had 10 the previous year, 13, now 16. Hey, you know what they say about growth, right? That's the Daily Times.
Nigerian News Direct this morning has economy on its front page. 16.39 trillion naira fiscal framework. Senate alleges revenue diversion by MDAs. What does that mean? Find the story on page 2. Approves revised fiscal framework. Orders MDAs to generate 1 trillion naira revenue annually. Each one. That'll be something. And there's so many other stories on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. You can choose your pick or pick your choose.
MDs to make 1 trillion naira yearly.
That's an order.
Oh, that's good. So we have how many MDAs? Oh, that's a good.
Just ministries. More than ministries, we have about something real.
I didn't know you could order people 30. To make this amount of money.
Yeah. Or departments, very many, and agencies.
Huge.
A plethora.
We're looking at a harvest of revenue.
Yes, and we'll pay off our 40 trillion naira debt in one fell swoop.
By order. All right. That's it. We'll look at some of the dailies here today. We will be back in a moment.
By order.
Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Well, you might have heard, it's all over the place about the threat of emergency subject matter. To discuss that this morning, we're joined by Mr. Emeka Etiaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, from our studios in Abuja. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, this has certainly got a lot of perspectives out there, legal and otherwise. Well, you're very familiar with developments there and the law, with historical background as well. So could you tell us in context, when you heard this, and then in context of what's playing out in Anambra, what do you think?
Yeah, good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, viewers. I had this news yesterday, and to the effect that the Attorney General of the Federation addressed the press after the Federal Executive Council meeting and said that the federal government is thinking of proclaiming a state of emergency in Anambra State. And my first take on it is I had a rumor that such a thing could happen about a month back. And then I'm hearing something that looks like we're going towards that direction. My second take is that Anambra State has been the safest state in Nigeria up until about just quite a few months back, less than 3 months back. You know, in Anambra State, if you hear that a robbery took place in any community, within a few hours, the people are fished out, and it rarely happened. But now things have changed. I go the next step, which is federal government intends to consider that as an option, and the Attorney General tied his view or his briefing to the election of November 6, 2021, governorship election. And I ask two questions. The first question is, what has the federal government done to stop the violence that is taking place in Anambra and beyond Anambra State? Two, how does a state of emergency actually ensure that we have free and fair election in Anambra State? You know, these are the two questions that I am pondering over. And we need answers to them, otherwise people may begin to think that their fears, the fears they started expressing a few months back, are coming to pass. That's my take for now, and then, but I'm sure I'm not here to talk the politics of it. I'm here to talk the law of it. So as you lead me, I will continue to talk. Thank you.
Well, yeah. Does that then mean that, for instance, if government says, look, if this is what we have to do to ensure that we forestall any further loss of lives and property, and if it's the main option that they think they have, you're saying that that may not be the case?
No, that is not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the decision to proclaim a state of emergency is tied to the election of November 6, 2021. And I say that if you look at Section 305 of the Constitution, which empowers the President to proclaim a state of emergency in any part of the country or country as a whole, and then you go to Section 45 of the same Constitution, which actually tells you the implication of a state of emergency, then you begin to see that that a state of emergency cannot guarantee an election holding in Anambra on November 6. What am I talking about? If there's a proclamation for state of emergency, and you go to Section 45 of the Constitution, you find out that a state of emergency connotes that every personal right from Sections 33 to 41 of the Constitution is kept in abeyance, because personal rights will have to be wished away for public right and public duty and public safety to take the center stage. So if what we are told is that there's need to suspend personal rights so that public right and public duty and public safety and all will be ensured, then we'll look at it at that point. But if anybody is saying that unless that is done, election may not take place in Anambra, don't know. It cannot. It's counterproductive because both of them, the state of emergency entails a total elimination of democratic norms and institutions and practice. And election has to do with democratic practice, you know. And then before you get to that level, that stage, you as the federal government will have to take some steps to stem the violence. What steps has the government taken? You know, the killings and the maimings and all that you have seen in the past few days, they actually happened close to my house in the village. So I'm not discussing Borno State. I'm discussing Nnewi, Anambra State. And then again, if you look at the conditions for proclamation of a state of emergency in a state, you also see that Anambra has not qualified. Because the Constitution specifically says that that violence has to be contained in the particular state where the proclamation will take place. Now it is common knowledge that there are killings in Imo State, there are killings in Anambra State, there are killings in Enugu State. You know, of course, there are killings in Abia. So why are you stigmatizing Anambra State, you know, for a state of emergency? My own is very simple. If you are sick and you go to hospital, the doctor will not begin to say you're going under the knife. No, the doctor will first of all look at you, look at the symptoms, look at your history, and then conduct tests and say this is the problem, and then this will be the solution. Has anybody told us what the problem is in Anambra State? Nobody knows what the problem is. We are left to our own conjecture. Some people are saying it is imported violence. Some people are saying no, it is homegrown. Some people are saying it is politically motivated. Everybody talks from different sides of the mouth. And first of all, we'll have to look at what the problem is before you now begin to tell us that you're wielding the big stick. I don't know what the problem is. I really do not know. Because like I said at the beginning, Anambra has been number one on security. Everybody knows it. We flaunt it. The governor flaunts it. So why now and why this way?
But if you look at some of the provisions of the law, because, I mean, we've even heard certain people say, well, okay, look at the conditions first. That section 305, which you reference, 3 says, the president shall have powers to issue a proclamation of a state of emergency only when A, the federation is at war, the federation is in imminent danger of invasion or involvement in a state of war, there is actual breakdown of public order and public safety in the federation or any part thereof to such extent as to require extraordinary measure to restore peace and security. There is a clear and present danger of an actual breakdown of public order and safety in the federation, any part thereof requiring extraordinary measures to avert such danger. And then it lists several others. So does that mean that they cannot cite some of this? Because if these interpretations, aren't they usually to a large extent subjective for them to think, well, how do you know when exactly there is a clear sign of breakdown? Because if people are dying, isn't that sufficient to cite some of these clauses?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Like I said earlier, it is very straightforward. Killings in Nigeria are no longer news. They kill from Borno to Sokoto, Sokoto to Kebbi, down to everywhere, Middle Belt. They kill every day. And so if killings and violence and threat of violence will be the threshold, then virtually the entire country has to go on a state of emergency. But as a lawyer, I am looking at the statement made by the Attorney General. It was tied to the governorship election of Anambra State of the 6th of November. It wasn't a blanket statement. And so I view their decision or their intention based on what we have been told. We have been told that that will ensure the election takes place. And I'm saying that will ensure that the election will not take place. And even if it takes place, it will not be a free and fair election. And then I leave it at that. If you read down section 305, the subsections, you get to the point where it tells you that before such proclamation will be made, it will only be made, the violence or threat of violence will be domesticated in the state. It does not go beyond the borders. In fact, the Constitution, I think, used the word borders. And I'm asking you, the violence that you hear about, does it not go beyond Anambra State borders? It goes. Imo State is not asleep. They are burning down police stations. They are doing all sorts. It's just that Anambra State has received an unfair share this time around. A friend of mine was killed in Nsukka 2 nights ago, head of vigilante of his community and his deputy. And they were killed and the place burned down. The vigilante office burned down. That's not Anambra, that's Enugu. So what I'm saying is very simple. You know, for some of us who are lawyers and have also had stint with politics, we know that all is not well with the country. And we know that most times abuse comes on with most of the decisions that are taken. I'll give you an example. The body language of Southeasterners is that they don't even want to see army on the street and all that because of the way they conduct their own security measures, humiliation there, extortion of money, abuse of ladies and all that. But we've gotten to a point where we're saying, oh, even that point, that one is even more tolerable than what we're seeing today. But again, has the government tried it? Bringing in federal security forces to at least calm down the place? Has it failed? At what point have we started talking about state of emergency?
So a couple of fundamental questions
don't really
here.
Know the
pardon me, you have raised a couple of issues. And, I mean, it takes us back to the fundamentals. Yes. On the one hand, I mean, why do we have to have this sort of violence in the build-up to elections? And it's something we've seen time and again. And I mean, it's understandable the perspective you have brought in. I mean, referencing some other states and the spate of violence and killings we've seen in those states. But on the one hand, do you see this? It appears as though people see this as a statement of intention rather than caution, as though this is the plan from the federal government. And I think that's largely the response we've seen from even the government, political parties, seeing this as though it's part of a plan of the federal government to ensure that this is enforced. So perhaps you might want to also look at it from that perspective. Do you see this as a statement of intent, like this is part of a plan that is being played out? You're a politician as well, and I'm sure you see the trends. Or you think this is just a mere caution? Because looking at the statement or listening to the Attorney General, it says that they would ensure that elections take place, ensure that security is being put out, and then added that, well, we're not ruling out a state of emergency, perhaps if things get worse. So do you think that this is just a mere caution or a statement of intent?
Thank you very much. Before I answer that, let me correct a narrative that is wrong. In Anambra State, until a few months back, no strand of hair has been lost by reason of conduct of election or campaigns. We pride ourselves in it. No human life has ever been lost during campaigns or elections in Anambra, no matter how highly contested the election is. It has never happened. Not one cup of blood, not one drop of blood has ever dropped from any human being in Anambra, be that policeman, be that politician, be that from the electorate. It has never happened. And that is why some of us sit back today and ask ourselves, where are we coming from? And where are we going to? This is not Anambra people. It cannot be Anambra people. An Anambra man can abuse you on the television, on the telephone, anywhere. But we have a lot of respect for blood. We never deal with blood, you know, and that is why you see us dealing with each other across party level. We discuss, we talk, we are jolly good fellas. This is strange.
Just a minute.
One. Definitely, the statement
we need to go to break, but
general.
We'll return and let you continue your train of thoughts in just a moment. Stay with us. All right, so could you please go ahead and make the point?
Okay, thank you once again. Yeah, but the question is whether it's a statement of intent or it is actual. And I will take you back to the Bible, because the Bible is actually the supreme word, is the word of God. And the Bible said in Genesis that God wanted to create this world, and he said, let there be light. And what followed? Light followed. Every human being should know that next to God is political power. And if a government molds an intention, you don't rule out the possibility that the government is going towards that area. So I know as a fact that it's a statement of intention or intent, but it also behoves on the Anambra and Nigerians to discuss it so that we look at the pros and the cons. You know, we're discussing it today because the state of emergency has not come. If it has come, then we can't be talking about it, because it takes away even the right for you to air any opinion, for you to associate with anybody, for you to own property, for you to anything, any personal right that you have is eroded. We go to section 45 of the Constitution. So it's an intention, yes, but that intention is what will give birth to a decision which will eventually give birth to the reality.
So quickly, I mean, you said that regarding politics and election, there hasn't been violence of sorts. But I recall in April, I think the governorship candidate of APGA, Sachikuma Soludo, had this political meeting with, I think, youths. And I'm sure you recall that event where there was an attack, policemen were killed. And, you know, we've seen that trend. And for a lot of people, those were signals, things that were pointing to perhaps what we're seeing right now. So I'm not sure, are you trying to say that these killings we are seeing are not politically inclined, perhaps something else is at play? Maybe you want to share some insights with us.
Yeah, the example you just gave actually supports my own position that before this election, it never happened. You're discussing what has happened during the campaigns and all, you know. So it is happening now, not before this election. That's number one. Number two is that the fact that you're asking me an opinion as to what is going on means that the powers that be have not actually come out with what is going on, information on what is going on. You know, growing up many years back, I used to hear security report. And those institutions that furnished us with security reports are still there. I would have expected the security report to reveal what is going on, because a lot is going on, and these people know better than we do. I can only tell you from my own standpoint, and I know in part, I don't know in full. Government knows it all, and that is why I said that before the Attorney General made that statement, maybe it would have been nice for the people to know what is going on, where it is coming from, so that we can now begin to appreciate whatever decision federal government will take. They have not told us what is going on. We're all groping. Everybody, you come up, if you're a member of APGA, you say APC wants a state of emergency so that they will snatch power from you. If you're a member of APC, you say, no, this is the time to have a state of emergency. If you're from PDP, you have your own position. So these are market talk. They are not real. We need to hear from the government what is going on in Anambra State. I'll give you an example. A man like Dr. Chuokongwu, who was Minister for Finance under the IBB government, who did so well for the country. He's in his late 80s now. He's about 88, 89 years. His house was burnt the other day. What is the problem? He's not a politician. He's not even in the village. He's so quiet. I don't even think his site is good enough to participate in any meaningful social event. And then his house is burnt down, you know. So when you ascribe some to political activities, you look at the other side and you see that, no, it's not all political activities. So there's need for us to be briefed on what is going on in our place so that we'll understand it. Many months back, I took a break from these interviews, and so I've not been talking. And but when I did talk about 2 years ago and a year and a half ago, I said it in channels. I said we are endangered You know, people, Nigerians think that every Igbo man is actually ready to confront the federal government and federal power. It is not like that. Meanwhile, some of us who are not at the forefront of what is going on become endangered, because when we finish with our life in Abuja, we'll go back to the village. And you don't want to be seen as being anti the thoughts of the average Igbo man. And I kept saying it that time, let the federal government look into what is going on. What are we really talking about? Are we not aware that there's so much injustice in the land? I see politicians talk about zoning or no zoning. You are in a place where your people are butchered every day. You're not concerned about the maladministration. Your own is power must not leave this place. It must go to Mr. Tiaba. No, we are not serious. I've also played at the level of politics, partisan politics. And I realized that even the politicians who are formulating these policies and laws, they don't think about the masses. They think about themselves.
We need to anchor at that point.
Does not think about how it affects Anambra. He thinks about how it affects his position in the National Assembly.
All right. I guess it's something that we'll keep tabs on that and see what next steps they can or will take, having heard several perspectives put up by several persons, including yourself. So we thank you for coming on, Mr. Emeka Tiaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
We're back in a moment. To stay with us.
In less than 24 hours, President Buhari will present the 2022 national budget to a joint sitting of the Senate and House of Representatives. The Fiscal Responsibility Act requires both houses to pass the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) before the President submits the budget to the National Assembly. In the House of Representatives, federal legislators passed the MTEF, which has been revised to reflect the new fiscal terms in the Petroleum Industry Act, as well as other critical revenue and expenditures in the 2022 budget. The senators also passed the MTEF, approving a fiscal deficit of 635.4 billion naira, but lawmakers worry about revenue shortfalls.
I thought under-recovery should have been pegged to a particular amount, because no matter how much we get in terms of revenue, and we are really struggling in terms of revenue, under-recovery can wipe that out.
The Senate Minority Leader.
Away from the passage of the MTEF, Deputy Senate President Senator Ovie Omagege is displeased by comments made by the Minority Leader, Senator Eyinaya Baribe, on the Host Community Development Fund in the Petroleum Industry Act.
Mr. President, I have received several telephone calls since last night after this interview was aired. Mr. President, a decision was taken by the Senate. That bill has since been passed into law. The majority took a decision here that it should be 3%. But it was not partisan. It was not a PDP position. Neither was it an APC position.
This is one chamber. Even if it is one senator that stands for something, and that senator loses the vote, that senator must never lose hope of getting the remaining senators to see the issue through his eyes the next day. There is no reason for us to give the wrong information, because it doesn't help. We never voted along partisan lines.
The upper chamber is also passing the second reading of a bill to amend the Legal Education Act to increase the number of campuses of a Nigerian law school to 12 at the minimum.
This amendment to the Nigerian Council of Legal Education is to encourage the Federal Council of Legal Education to encourage the federal government of Nigeria to increase the number of campuses of the Nigerian law school to 12 at the minimum, by establishing additional one each in the 6 geopolitical zones of the Federation.
The Senate instructs its Committee on Judiciary to work on the bill and report back in 4 weeks.
Well, that's the next item on the agenda today. And of course, as you can see, Buka Kyari joins us this morning, former chairman of NESG. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr. Kyari. Well, the Senate has since passed this revised 2022-2024 MTEF. The House of Representatives has also received the same, and we understand that the president is going to be delivering the budget speech this afternoon. But perhaps by way of a review, from your perspective of previous MTEFs and this one, how well or how significantly has the MTEFs affected the economy, and what are your hopes for this one?
Good morning. The MTEF is part of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, determines basically what one could consider the medium-term, meaning short to medium-term strategy paper on the budget and especially expenditure, because the E in MTEF is the expenditure aspect of the budget. Now, it was initially at 13 point something, 13.4 or 13.8 trillion naira. But I understand that yesterday it had been bumped up to about 16.45 trillion, meaning that would be the expenditure for 2022. Now, there hasn't been any significant change in the revenue aspect of that plan, of that framework. And I believe that the revenue still was kept at the 8.76. But we'd have to wait for a few more hours to listen to Mr. President's budget presentation to actually make a sense of it. But one thing is certain, from the posture of these documents, it looks like another year of deficit financing. And the deficit may even widen, because if the numbers were to be raised from 13 to 16, then obviously another nearly 3 trillion naira would be added to the deficit that initially was around 5 trillion or so. So we may see a situation where the deficits aspect of the budget may go up to 7 or 8 trillion naira.
But, you know, I mean, one other thing that is definite is that the bill is increasing. Budget deficit is already increasing, and from the front pages of the papers here this morning, going by the decision of FEC yesterday, we'll definitely have to borrow something in the region of 6-point-something trillion to fund the budget. And at a time when a significant chunk of our budget goes into debt servicing, how is that going to help our production? Because we also hear from you economists that unless we are producing, we can't do any better.
Certainly, one has to go back to the drawing board in terms of what one needs to do for the economy to become productive. And it is that productivity that would generate the necessary revenue or potential revenues for government. That's one. The second is naturally with an increasing productivity, it means that there would be more economic activity. Initially, one can do that, right? But when I look at this MTEF, the MTEF, this is the budget, that the allocations to the various pockets, if you will, are different, because capital spending was put at 3.6 trillion. Now, capital being the expenditure being the necessary ingredient for the future is dwindling in number or even as a percentage of the budget, which is basically means that the positive thing that had been mentioned in the document about the capital expenditure is that government may ensure that projects that have been started in prior times or last year or this year would be completed. I think that's a commendable statement and or desire. Now, those elements are fine, but when we see that the debt service itself is inching up as a percentage of the revenue, because if the debt service exceeds 6 trillion, and your mayor would bet you that by the 2022, it might even go as close to 7 or 8 trillion naira. Now, that in a situation where, of course, deficit increase does not necessarily mean that the debt service will increase percentage. It would be a smaller inching up depending on the rates of interest those debts would be, those monies would be borrowed at. But the key thing is that we are in a situation where we are in a hole and we continue to dig. And the saving grace obviously has to be look at what we need to do to ensure that we collect more taxes, we become more productive. And the realities also need to come in. But I think many analysts are indicating that it is time for federal government to sell some of the dead assets. There are probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 that the government can use to recapitalize, so to speak.
Businesses here have got to thrive. So could you give us the practical implication of this, how it's going to play out in both the private and public sector in the country?
The businesses need to study the budget and the budget posture and the strategy of the budget. And I would encourage businesses to look at what the outcome is going to look. Some of the assumptions may or may not come to pass. Oil production on a daily basis, those numbers.
Because pardon me, I was going to say, how much are they going to have access
today?
Sorry, just to put this as well, as you explained, are they going to have access to finance, and how? That's what I mean by how will this play out for them?
Yes. Well, some of the larger corporates are issuing their own bonds, but the smaller companies, actually the backbone of the economy, will have difficulty borrowing. Mind you, as the FX situation exacerbates and the economy is not picking up at a rate that was expected post-pandemic, or as the crisis related to COVID is, thereby banks can start to lend. But I don't see that happening fairly soon. And that basically means that credit availability will become extremely difficult. Of course, the banks are also going to study the economic environment and would have to pick and choose who and what areas to lend, to which clients and what sectors, and they're going to lend in. All of those risks have to be looked at, studied before anybody gives out loans. So yes, the situation as is quite difficult, but if there is, and of course we'll also have to see the response of the Monetary Policy Committee. Maybe at the next level there might be easing, but I don't see that happening because liquidity is still being sucked out of the economy. So what we are going to see for the private businesses is that, it's going to be a very difficult situation when it comes to availability of financing. The second is that some of the businesses, or many of the businesses depend on importation. And the lack of availability of FX is also a contributor to the difficult businesses encounter. So it is not necessarily just the budget element, but it is also the situation we have found ourselves with FX availability. I wish that the productivity in terms of people producing and exporting were to inch up. And if that were the case, then the pressure on the Naira would be less or lesser.
All of these that you have painted only seem to spell extremely hard times for the micro, small, and medium enterprises. You've talked about the difficulty of getting access to funding, and you've also talked about the fact that we are largely import dependent. You've also mentioned the difficulty of getting forex. Most of the micro, small, and medium enterprises, let's say maybe something in the region of 50 to 60% of them, source funding personally. So at a time when they are finding it difficult to raise personal funds, and the people that they could have relied on, friends, family, and all, that are having less and less spending power at this time, and of course, with the ease of doing business environments that we find ourselves in the country today, how then will government be able to generate the taxes and the revenues that they need to generate to balance things out, when in fact there are far less people within the tax net as opposed to the people who should be paying taxes?
In fact, you have done the analysis already. It's a difficult situation, because what we are going to see is that difficulty that the SMEs are facing. I mean, I know that for example, the central bank has intervention fund in the agri space in various segments of the economy. Now, I would imagine that some of these are lent out at reasonable rates. Now, those may give a bit of a breather, or what I would call subsidy, quote unquote, to that segment of. I also see a increasingly interesting segment or sector, which is the fintech and some of the startups getting investments. And most of those investments are, of course, naturally quoted in dollars, and majority are coming from outside of the shores of the country. Now, those are basically entities that are dressing themselves up. They're looking very good for the long term. They don't go to banks to borrow because they are startups. They don't have the balance sheet or track record to go to a bank and convince a bank to lend them money. So they are getting investments. Now, those investments give us two things, is that it could be inflow of FX into the economy. But the second thing, which is the hard breaking component, is that many of those early investors are not local. They're coming from outside. That means that if the fintech that started by a 25-year-old young person or young man or young woman, by the time it becomes $1 billion business, much of the income that would be generated by that, or dividends or whatever, would be accruing outside the country rather than inside. So I also encourage some of our businesses to create venture funds, in addition to even the government setting aside venture funds to invest in those promising aspects of the economy.
Well, a lot of this, I mean, we've talked largely about the responsibility of the federal government. We haven't even been able to mention the task that the states themselves have to play in all of this. But we have to leave that for another time. For now, we have to thank you very much. Buka Kyari is former chairman, NESG. Thank you so much for your time and thoughts this morning. So we swing to the next item right after now.
Yes, we're still anticipating the presentation of the 2022 appropriation bill at the National Assembly. In the meantime, we turn our attention to politics. And I'll tell you why. A lot of the deliberations you see at the National Assembly in the committees, a lot of those decisions prior to the deliberations are made within the political parties, because the parties indeed have their strategy, what they promise to people. So it's important to always pay attention to what's happening within the political parties. And we're starting off with the ruling APC this morning. You've followed perhaps from last year when there were issues with the former chairman of the party and the emergence of the extraordinary caretaker committee and the planned convention, but not to forget the ward congress, the local government congresses, and what came out of it. Well, it appears as though a lot of issues are still unresolved in the APC, and we're delving into that this morning. And to do that with us, we have two gentlemen joining us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Ibrahim Modibo is a former member, presidential campaign team of the APC, and right next to him is Mr. Aliyu Audu, who is also a member of the APC. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program. Well, Mr. Audu, let me begin with you because, you're part of those who perhaps have a grouse with the way things are being conducted within the APC, from the congresses at the ward to the local government. And I understand you have a major issue with the whole consensus arrangement and what's playing out. In the build-up to this convention, which we're yet to know the date, are you worried that something similar will play out in the convention where the process will be undemocratic, as your group has described it?
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, Nigerians. Yes, like you have rightly said, from what has happened so far, from the ward to local government congresses, we have reason to be concerned as to the undemocratic nature of the processes so far. And in a bid to ensure that same does not repeat itself at the national, convention, where we hope to elect those that will be in charge of day-to-day running of our party, that's the National Working Committee, we would expect that, the idea of consensus be, thrown away and allow for open contest. Consensus isn't in itself very bad or bad at all if done rightly. The Constitution does not, in any way envisage that imposition will be taken for consensus. What we've witnessed from the different states till date, it's parallel congresses, parallel inauguration of ESCOs. This usually, comes from a point where a powerful bloc, a powerful person, or a powerful group within a party, within the state or local government, sit somewhere, write list of those they wish to put in a position and make it binding, on the other members. Consensus isn't imposition. If we have, like we have in some states where we have more than one powerful people, like Akwa Ibom State, Ogun State, Kwara, Osun, many other states, where, who do we go, which of the executive lists do we take as official list for those who are, to be charged with the responsibility of running the party at the local government or at the ward level, if the choice of the people is not respected? So what we are basically asking for is that, having learned from all of this, having been part of this process, we are clearly stating that to avoid the same mistakes we've made in the past, so as not to go back to, the chaos that marred the last, tenure of the National Working Committee, we want to have leaders who will be elected at the National Convention by the people. We don't want consensus. We don't want a few people to sit and decide on who to have what. No, let the people decide on who to govern. Let the members of the party decide who should govern them. Because that's the only way we have leaders who respect every member and is respected by every member. When you impose a leader on party members, the chances are that the members won't respect the leader. And that is always, what brings about crisis in our political parties.
To what extent?
And we can't truly call ourselves, a party of progressives if all we do is impose candidates on party position.
So speaking of this imposition, This imposition which you reference, if you could just help us situate or contextualize it properly, to what extent did this happen across, the congresses we have seen at the ward and local government? Are you saying 100% imposition or 50%? To what extent really is this an issue? Has this played out?
It's close to 100%. And I'll tell you why I say this. If people are not complaining, it's because usually, they are, stifled. They are made to believe that they don't have a voice. Mr. President has shown in the last almost 2 decades that he's a Democrat. And being a Democrat means internal democracy must be respected. Consensus is one option, as, stated in our Constitution. But what we currently have from the ward to local government Congress is nothing like consensus. Some of us are part of this Congress committee, some of us are part of the appeal committee, and we hear, genuine members of this party come to complain about how their rights are not respected, how their wishes are not respected, how a certain individual sits somewhere and put on, the fact that many people are not talking is because they don't think they have a voice. And that is why we as APC members concerned feel we might just be going back to the same thing we are trying to walk away from, which is a party laden with, crisis. It doesn't matter the number of reconciliation committee you set up. You won't get any result if the right thing that should have been done isn't done.
So let me take this to Mr. Modibo.
Right. You have people who won't give their all to the party.
Pardon me, let me take this to Mr. Modibo because you have raised major fundamental issues. In a democratic party, which is the bedrock of democracy, Mr. Modibo, Mr. Lee, you have spoken about imposition instead of consensus, which is enshrined in the APC constitution. He has also referenced stifling of people's opinions. Imagine saying that almost 100% of the elections we have seen at those levels had candidates imposed on the people. I wonder if that's the same feeling you get from where you sit, from your corner of the party.
Well, thank you very much for this wonderful invitation, and I'm happy to be very close to my brother, Mr. Audu, and I also appreciate his views. But under globalization and multiculturalism, such as ours in Nigeria, the issue of consensus as one of the tools of democracy, as one of the concepts of democracy, cannot be overemphasized. In this case, I want to believe that the APC as a political party under the Mala Buni Caretaker Committee is using that instrumentality of democracy, or one of the concepts of democracy, to bring peace, stability, and concord. Either connotative or denotatively, the meaning of consensus presupposes that there is an agreement. People are supposed to sit in sync and in tune with the philosophy of democracy to agree on a fundamental issue, such as elections. When President Muhammadu Buhari came on board, he came with this nationalistic, patriotic and nationalistic desire to put Nigeria on the threshold of democracy based on the tenets of rule of law, and also based on the tenets of democracy where the vote counts. That is why when he came, he had tripodial structure of fighting corruption, taming insecurity, and also fixing the economy. And by the sidelines, open the floodgate for constitutionalism, also allow the rule of law as well as the ability of the people to go out and vote in sync with the philosophy of democracy. Now, having stated this, I am shocked that my brother Audu, who is also a member of the appeal committee in Adamawa in the recent elections, is saying that about almost about 100%. I don't know how it could be 100%. I don't know the methodology he used in arriving at this conclusion. But having stated this, you see, the issue of consensus is one of the tools of democracy, as I've earlier stated. And I believe that this issue of consensus tries to arrive at a destination where people will avoid rancorous situations and also see through the possibility of bringing up candidates that are popular to the rhymes and rhythms of democracy in their various communities. And therefore, to me, I believe that as one of the tools of democracy, as one of the concepts of democracy, the issue of consensus is very, very fundamental. It is used globally. That is why I started by saying under globalization and then multiculturalism such as ours in Nigeria, we cannot overemphasize the issue of consensus. Therefore,
very quick one, just before you go on. Just before you go on, Mr. Modibo, very quick one. You said it's not up to 100%. If you would gauge it, what would be your own percentage gauge?
You see, there could be no parameter to arrive at a conclusive destination on the percentage of this problem. Agreed. APC is not a mosque or a church where we have a leader that leads the congregation and everybody will be in line or in sync with the imam or the pastor. But as a political party that tries to bring people together, the issue of having grudges or having problems cannot be overemphasized. There must be.
Okay.
And therefore, that is the beauty of us having an appeal committee. The APC is as a formidable political party has internal mechanism of conflict resolution. That is why my brother Audu here was part of it, part of the process, especially in Adamawa, where he presided over the appeal of some people that have grudges. So let us assume, without necessarily conceding to the fundamental flaw, as enumerated by Audu, that it's 100%. I don't believe it. There must be semblance of democracy because I believe the Mai Mala Buni administration is out to give this party focus, to give it the necessary, fundamentals of cropping up political leaders, to take care of our democratic culture. But
just a second, so that we can make this a little more exciting. Okay, if we haven't arrived, you haven't given me a percentage figure. Is it 50%, 30%, 20%? Just that figure.
You see, as I've
can you give just give me a figure? Just give me a figure. That for right now.
If I were to arrive at the destination.
Yes.
I can say yes, agreed. There might be about maybe 20, 25 or maximum of 30%.
Okay, all right. Let me ask Mr. Audu. Let me ask Mr. Audu. Just a second. Let me ask Mr. Audu. Perhaps there is a need, well, you may want to respond to some of the things that he said, but perhaps there is a need for people to even understand the differences between consensus candidacy and imposition.
All right. Consensus candidacy, as enshrined in our constitution as a political party, it's where aspirants or candidates are allowed to purchase form, express interest to run for a particular position. Then, the aspirant contestants, along with stakeholders, in the particular constituency, sit, and agree to back one person where every other person, willingly withdraw from the race, and they come to the contest ground, and it's just a yay, you're all supporting yay this person, and it's easy and simple. We've had that, in the past in some other activities, but in this case, you have a situation where, like he rightly said, I'm a part of the appeal committee, but not Adamawa, but FCT, and I have people who went to Adamawa for Congress election from ward to local government, and they came back. We didn't just stand up to draw the attention of Mr. President, our national leader Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the other leaders of the party, and in fact the generality of the membership of the party, to this serious problem that we are walking into. We are doing this at the back of information from every state. As we speak, the secretary of the caretaker committee state, Akwa Ibom, is in the process of inaugurating 2 parallel executives. We have one led by Apabio, a former governor and a current minister, and one led by the secretary, Senator John himself. Osho State, that has the governor on the caretaker committee, is the same thing. We have one led by a minister, Arebeshola, on one side, then the one loyal to the governor on the other side. Kwara State is the same thing. Lai Mohammed has his own. The governor Abdulrazak has his own. I can go on and on. FCT here is not any different. Usuma Ward, many other wards, even Abuja Municipal Area Council, the Abaji, is the same thing. What I am saying is, imposition is when a few people sit down and make decision for the generality of the membership of the party. Anyone who wants to be a consensus candidate must be a popular candidate. So,
okay, but Mr. Adu, let me just bring this, because my apologies on that one. You know, he raised two things. First, he's given his own percentage, which is sharply completely different from the impression you have painted about degradation of that percentage. So, are you now on the same page with him, saying, look, it's just about 20-25%?
No, I am not. I mean, if you look through the media, you check for local governments, it might not be at the same, it doesn't have to be for the entire state. You know, you see local government congresses in some local government for some wards, and it's the same thing. You know, like I said, it's almost 100%, but it's way beyond 20, 25, 30%.
But then,
that's clear. People will not speak up because they don't.
Okay, so are you speaking of because lots of people are angry with it, or he alluded to the fact that you were part of some of these committees, so that gives the impression that perhaps you or your group lost out and then you decided to go public?
No. Don't misunderstand what he said. I mean, I did not take part. I didn't aspire for any position. None of my, as a matter of fact, it's not a group per se. We are a collection of concerned APC members. We have seen the trend. Many of us have been part of the processes, and we know that we might be sweeping these issues under the carpet. It will come back to haunt us. We've had this in the past where an elected National Working Committee did not see through their term. It was cut short, majorly because we did not put or do the right thing at the right time. If we have a convention where leaders who will run our party are elected freely, fairly, and transparently, the chances are that the leader will respect every member and the leader will be respected by every member. But when you had a certain powerful bloc sit and decide for the party, those who are aggrieved and can't speak up now will later find their voice and start speaking up. That is where you have some powerful people who get into a position to be powerful enough to start using instruments of government against the leaders of this party, which is why part of our prayers in our press conference yesterday is saying that we want the caretaker committee to right now release the date, other arrangements, and make public all the plans for the national convention, so that those who intend to run will start planning to buy their form and start doing consultations, start meeting people so they can run. I mean, for instance, we have an aspirant like Mr. Sylvester Sonny Monidafe, who has been, traveling the length and breadth of this country to, talk to stakeholders and express to them his interest to become the national chairman of the party. Then a certain people sit somewhere after a few weeks and said, next 2 weeks is going to be the convention, and we are zoning it not to a zone, not to a region, but to a particular person. That is not internal democracy. That is not consensus.
Okay, Mr. Audu, let's take this to Mr. Modibo right now. I mean, you've raised some issues. So it's amazing how the terms have changed. Before, it used to be godfathers in political parties, but now it's a powerful bloc, a powerful set of people. Perhaps still the same thing, but different nomenclature. So, Mr. Modibo, I mean, this has been said time and again by members in your party that there's a certain group of people that sit somewhere and make decisions for the party at various levels. I don't know if you're worried about that, but also perhaps what lends credence to that is the fact that the date for the convention has not been released yet. And is that something you're comfortable with, especially because this is a political party? Everybody should be, at least aware of what's going on. Are you comfortable that the dates and some other issues are being kept close to the chest of some people?
Well, I am concerned that the date to the convention has not been released up to this moment we're talking about. I'm an interested party. I want to contest in the forthcoming elections. But let me say, without any fear of contradiction, that APC as a political party does not impose candidates. I want to believe that these young patriotic Nigerians that came up yesterday to do the press conference were people that are concerned about the party. They are concerned about the development of the party. They are concerned about development of democracy. But we should not be in a hurry to do damages to our party in the name of trying to bring corrections. Now, I still believe that there is an open-ended opportunity where we can sit, harmonize issues, especially with the appeal committees. If you are aggrieved, you don't bring down the roof of the house because maybe of your own interest or some of your people's interest that has not been met. I believe a political party is a conglomeration of people of the same focus, the same character, same characterization, and also the same feelings about democracy. So if it is agreed, then as a political party, we should look internally. We should have an internal mechanism of conflict resolution. I strongly believe some of these people that have been able to, come up with this press conference, I saw them yesterday. They were all very young, dynamic, vibrant politicians of tomorrow. I believe that today they are part and parcel of the government because the floodgate of politicking is open to them. And
two issues you've raised.
It's not easy.
Mr. Modibo, pardon me, two issues you have raised. I want to quickly speak to that. On the one hand, you referenced that, they shouldn't bring the roof of the party down. Are you, in essence, saying that what Mr. Audu and others are doing is not right in terms of, internal party mechanism? Are you saying that they should not have come out to voice these concerns? That's one. So if you could quickly answer that so I can follow up with the next.
That's the beauty of democracy. That's the beauty of democracy. You have this fundamental human right of airing your views, and they have done that, and we appreciate what they are doing. We are not saying that it's not a good thing, but we believe that we should do it under the mechanism of conflict resolution which has been set by the party. And this is coming on the heels of him being one of the people that are architects of this internal conflict resolution. He is a member of that conflict resolution committee. Therefore, I believe that he should be able to moderate the views of these party men because they are the people, the engineers, grassroots mobilizers of the party.
But interestingly,
the grassroots mobilizers of the party.
Interestingly,
and therefore we strongly believe that as a political party,
you can land on that. Sorry, I'll put my question in. Please land on that so I can put in the next question.
Yeah. So I believe that as members of the political party, we should give the Mamala Budi administration or the caretaker committee to give us the focus. Because for now, they are almost winding down. This caretaker committee has been able to do a lot. You can see how governors have been flooding in. And I can tell you that very, very soon, PDP is going to implode and more other governors are coming into the party. So the more the merrier. We believe that a political party should have an open door policy. It is not going to be it's just like a church or a mosque where there's no gate man. And therefore, people should come in. The more the merrier. So, let us see how we can work and allow ourselves to dance to the rhythm and rhythm of democracy so that we could have a viable political party that could win election in the next 20, 30 or 40 years to come.
Ironically, Mr. Modibo, the PDP... Today, if I could just come in quickly, ironically, the PDP would also say, well, the APC, as we're looking at them, they're about to implode and more of them will come to our party. So, it's something we hear now and then. But you've not addressed another issue that Mr. Audu raised about a powerful bloc within the party. And this is something we have heard time and again. And people will say that there's a certain group of people in your party, the APC, and they get to decide what goes on. For example, perhaps the date, the modality, the candidates to push up and the rest. Do you agree that there's indeed a powerful bloc within the party to begin with?
No, you see, there's a problem. And the problem here had to be underscored by the fact that politicking or political party is all about interest. You see, some of these people that are there, they don't want to leave the stage. Some people that are there are very interested because they have interest. And therefore, the same thing with the young people that have been able to do the press conference yesterday, they're also having interest. So politics is all about interest. And therefore, whosoever feels his interest is not protected will start crying wolf where there's none. I strongly believe that there's no cabal in APC, but I know, as a matter of fact, that there are powerful individuals that are in the political party. We have to agree that if you have joined the party in 2021 or 2020, you could not have the same standing with somebody that started the politicking as far back as 2000 or 2001. He must have made, a concrete arrangement based on party structures. He has a structure on the ground, and therefore you cannot come over. Just within 24 hours and upset that structure.
All right, Mr. Modibo, thank you for that. At least now it's clearer that the difference between power block and powerful individuals. But let me ask you, Mr. Audu, very quickly, unless these issues that you have raised are addressed, for you, what are the implications?
All right. Before I answer this, I quickly want to address something my leader here said about our group being, something about tomorrow. No, we are the future. The future is now. We didn't join APC because we want a one-party state. We didn't join APC because we want a party where all manner of human beings can just be brought in and in the name of numbers. No, we joined because we wanted a progressive-minded party. We sought a progressive-minded party. As a matter of fact, we had started our own assembly before the APC was formed in 2013 from the different legacy parties. I'll tell you for free, I was a member of the APYF, which was formed under the leadership of Ismail Ahmed, who is currently the representing youth in the caretaker committee. That was formed before the merger happened. We want a party that is respected, that runs on ideology. We don't want all manner of... It's not just about the numbers. We want people to be attracted to our party because they align with the ideology of the party, the progressive ideals upon which this party was formed by the foundation fathers. You see, what we have right now is a number of people who want to hang on to power, who want to move from being governors to senators to being chairman of... who want to be powerful at all times just because they have no plan of their own for the ordinary member, so they don't want to be ordinary members. We want a party where the ordinary member feels as respected and as important as the most powerful member of the party. We are not saying we want... everybody is important. That is all we want. And the only way to ensure that is by ensuring that when leaders are elected, everybody has a say in it. When leaders are are elected, it is done fairly, credibly, and openly.
And that is certainly
the motto
a
of our
good
party
place.
is justice.
That's the bedrock of democracy, and I'm glad, you made that point, and I believe that's a great place to anchor gentlemen on this conversation. Certainly an ongoing one. We'll keep our tabs and our eyes, rather, on what's playing out in the APC. But gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Mr. Ibrahim Modibo and Mr. Aliyu Audu, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're switching gears to another interesting topic. You definitely don't want to miss this. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back. Well, yeah, we're turning our attention now to another party politics, the People's Democratic Party. Well, it turns out that today, the NEC, which is the second highest making organ of the party, will be holding their meeting today. Well, you do remember that the zoning committee had made their report public, wherein they have recommended that all persons holding party positions in the south swap with persons holding swap it to the north, and so they zoned the chairmanship of the party to the north. So that is generating some reaction. So the party will be meeting today to see whether or not that will be accepted, even though some thought you were not supposed to have made that public. You were supposed to submit to the NEC, who will then take the next steps, whatever those next steps are. So we'll get reactions from the two gentlemen you've seen in that welcoming slide. First of which is Oladimeji Fabiyi, who is a member of the party. He was also in that Edo governorship screening committee. And then we'll also get to hear from Honorable Tajuddin Yusuf, who is a member of the House of Representatives. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Let me start with you, Mr. Fabiyi.
I'm happy to be here.
So now that the zoning committee has come up with this position, there are many who just think, simple decision for NEC to take. Adopt it, zone the party chairmanship to the north, and by implication, it means that the position of where the president comes on will just go to the south. What are your thoughts about this?
Should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chamberlain. Good morning, Nigerians. I'm happy to be here once again. Let me start by saying that this is another trying time for our party, and then I believe that the leaders we have elected to manage the affairs of the party would sit down and do and have a proper review of whatever actions we are going to take. You will agree with me that the zoning issue has generated lots of negative reactions since the release of it. You just said in your remark now that the process with which it was announced, was not proper at all, because NEC empowered the committee to carry out an assignment, and it is proper that the report or recommendation of that assignment be laid properly before the NEC. It will be discussed before making it public, document. We have seen that, we saw that in Governor Bala's fact-finding committee report that was laid before the NEC, and NEC discussed it, and the position was taken. So having said that, the history of zoning in PDP is very clear. In the history of PDP, we have had 3 zoning arrangements. From 1999, we had one that was to lapse in 2007, and that one threw up the southern president and then the northern chairman of the party. So again, expectedly was supposed to continue to run for 8 years like that. But unfortunately, in 2015, we had an overlapping problems where even the party and the government at that time had to adopt what we call doctrine of necessity to ensure that the party does not, run into trouble. And I think this should have been the same, process for this. For me, I'm thinking and I'm praying that the party leadership would sit and then review, because this has generated, like I said, lots of negative reaction, and it calls for review. There's nothing stopping an organization or a group of people when you have your rules. Even Boy Scouts have rules, but those rules must be subject to review over time. And this is exactly what we're saying. If we are honest with ourselves, and if we remember that PDP is not a ruling party, is in the opposition, and then APC will never hold any prisoner for us, and we must not allow their own action to determine our own decisions in our party. It's very, very critical. I hope today, like I said, the leadership of the party will sit down and be honest in their assessment and evaluation and take decisions that will not only help the PDP, but that will help the country. Because if PDP is in power, the effect of it will definitely resonate in what happens in the larger society. I feel pain, because just
a minute, Mr. Fabi. Just a minute. We'll come back to you on this, but let's also get the opening comments of Honorable Yusuf on this matter. So, Honorable Yusuf, do you think that these are valid points of concern, as Mr. Fabi has raised?
I agree on some and disagree totally with some. I agree to the fact that the proper thing would have been to bring it to the NEC, and for NEC to look at it before it's made public. But I disagree to the fact that the zoning has generated negative consequences and what have you. Zoning is not casting iron, I agree with him. But that the fact that this is swap position does not in any way. Your opening remark is that maybe presidential ticket will go to South or what have you. That will be a different ballgame. That will be decided at a later stage. I know say it cannot be thrown open. So I don't want us to make the issue of this zoning of political party executive position an issue. let's give credit to the PDP that under 2 months, we are coming up with zoning and we are going for a convention. When we have our counterpart on the other side for almost a year now or 2 years, they are having a caretaker committee on the affairs of the party. So these things to me are not as germane as that. What did those who sat down, I'm not privy to that decision. I wasn't there. But I know that they will have looked at a lot of things before they came to that conclusion. Don't forget, it was voting that resulted into that position. And I believe that they will come to the next today to canvass and expose to us why they took those decisions. So I want to appeal that we should not make that an issue, that chairmanship is on to the north, what have you. There was a time we had both chairman and president from the same zone. And the party sat down later for a sense of equity and oneness and reject things. So for me, what is important right now is that take a decision that is right. What is the idea now? Swap position. Swap. What does it change? That's my feeling. I don't think there's any...
Yeah. Mr. Fabi, so in consideration of what he's just said, there's no reason for anyone to be overtly concerned about this matter if they've had positions two persons come from certain regions, so it shouldn't really be of huge concern. Why is this particular one generating so much dust since he said, look, that shouldn't be the case?
Chamberlain, thank you. When you have a process as a group or an organization, it's always good to follow the process. We've seen this in the past, how we have come to this point. See, PDP has been able to raise the standard. They've been able to raise the bar, and I don't think they should lower it again. It will not help us, on the long run. I agree with Honorable, Yusuf, that there shouldn't be any brouhaha, out of this. But in politics, it happens. Where it comes from, where it's representing, I'm sure a lot of things, issue of zoning takes place there. And I'm sure that if a decision is made in his constituency that he feels not comfortable, we should be able to talk about it. We shouldn't just brush this away because it concerns our member, it involves our member, critical member of the party. So what I'm saying in essence is that if we have a process, we must be able to follow it, because our inability failure to follow it can spell doom for the party. This is exactly what I'm saying. Okay, I am a Southwest and I'm from Ogun State, I'm from Southwest. All right, my zone has never produced the national chairman of the party. I was in the party office for 8 years. I knew how most of this thing ran. I have contested for national secretary of the party. I knew how it was run. So what has changed now? Why can't you follow that process and ensure that everybody is carried along? We're talking about inclusion. When people feel you have excluded them in a manner that they don't like, they react. And this is what I'm asking our leadership at the party to look into when taking this decision. Unfortunately, the zoning committee did not take that into consideration. And we shouldn't be deceiving ourselves here. The truth of the matter is that a lot of people are not happy with this. So
are you suggesting that you don't have confidence in the NEC to right every possible wrong that might have been done?
No, I'm not saying that. NEC is the organ that is saddled with this responsibility. I believe them. I believe in them that they can do it. And that's why I'm saying this. There's need for them to be up and doing, to be up and running and consider every side or every divide to this matter. I was telling you something. I'm a Southwestern. I'm from Ogun State, and I'm a stakeholder in this party. Okay? My zone has never produced the national chairman of the party is there in the public. Now the Southeastern people are agitating to produce the president. The way Southwest is saying, give us the chairmanship of the party. And a recommendation came and said, we wait to see what NEC is going to do. We have confidence in the NEC. We have confidence in the leadership of our party, but we'll wait, to see the decision that they will come up with today.
Well, Honorable Yusuf, there are those who believe that this is what they call a raging tornado, that unless the party leadership, takes a look at it, it will be like literally breathing down the neck of people, irrespective of whatever the issues are. So it just begs the question whether or not there is a sense of inclusion in the thinking of the leadership of the party.
My brother, let me make some clarification. I'm listening to my brother talking. Southwest has never have not been chairman of the party. Southwest have been president for 8 years. Between president of the party and party chair and the president of the country, which one is more important? Southwest has not been president of the country. They be chairman of the party, and they still feel marginalized. So let's get this thing right. Who said Southwest cannot be president of Nigeria in 2023? Who is stopping Southwest from contesting? If, for now, we are zoning chairmanship to the north, I believe that there is merit in it. I does not stop anybody from the north or south from contesting. Instead of talking about zoning in my place, zoning has always been an issue anyway. However, when a zoning is done in this manner, that there's no, because the north now, we still meet from North Central. After NEC meeting today, if NEC ratifies this position, North Central will meet and zone those positions based on the 3 zones in the northwest, in the north, northwest, northeast, and north central. So it means that it cascades down, and each zone will now know what they hate. Southwest can run for presidency. Southeast can run for presidency. Northwest, northeast. I don't want us to lump these things together. That the fact that Southwest has not been chairman of the party means they've been marginalized. They've been president under this party for 8 years. What can be bigger than that?
You haven't addressed the question that I raised about a sense of inclusion, among the parties, because both of you, for instance, are from the same political party, and the issues are clearly glaring from what you both are arguing.
That is a must. I don't contest that. I believe that at the next meeting today, reasoning will prevail, but I don't want us to come to the public and begin to raise dust. There's no dust. So I believe that the next meeting today, reasoning will prevail. Each side, it is normal in political agitation for different cleavages to have their interest and to feel that if I get it, it's better for me. It is a normal thing. But that something has been done, we now feel that what is done has raised up. Go to next meeting today. You will see perspective. You will see opinion. That's one thing about PDP. It's robust. It's not a one-man show. Everybody has a side. So at the next meeting today, I have a conviction that what decision that will be taken in the interest of all. Don't forget, in 2015 or 2018, what was it? The last national convention that produced Senator Honorable Uche Secondus as national chairman. Southwest ran, contested for that chairmanship, lost because 1, there was no cohesion. 2, I don't want to mention them, but the leader as at that time of Southwest were not comfortable with having a national chairman. They positioned themselves for vice presidential slot, and they deliberately put the national chairman out of Southwest. Who do we blame for that?
So are you saying with the current trend now, this is essentially perhaps a ploy to push the presidency back to the southwest, or at least the south?
It is normal that in political agitation, interests will definitely be reasons why you have decision taking. But what I'm saying is that do we at this junction have reason to be agitated? No. With the presidency, with this now, because we are zone chairman to the north, we deny other people from the other zone from contesting presidency? No. But what I'm saying is we should look at how to maximize the benefit to each zone and collectively for Nigeria. What is important is that we must be seen as a party that is ready to be a better alternative to this canker woman, this kind of thing we're having presently. Nigerians cannot say, they won't take it from us. On the basis of, because chairman did not come to my area, that's why we're going to go into crisis as a party. But I have a conviction that at the next meeting, reasoning will prevail. Every interest will be looked into, and if you cannot get A, you get B. If you cannot get C, that is what PDP is of.
But Honorable, there's only A to Z, so there's only limited positions or at least slots that people will get. I wonder what happened to people that are not covered in that A to Z arrangement. Perhaps another arrangement will be made. But pardon me, in terms of
okay,
in terms of packaging now.
Hold Okay,
in terms of packaging the party as a better alternative, I know that all of this is towards the 2023 elections. What for you? You said that you believe reasoning will prevail, as it were. So in what way, for you, do you think the party should package itself in terms of this whole deliberations, north or south? Is it zoning or eligibility or, competency, whatever? How do you think the PDP should package itself such that it can be the better alternative you want it to be?
On the party's leadership and what have you,
yes,
I want the zoning committee to give us insights today on what, by privilege, I'm a member of NEC, so I will be there to want to listen to their reasoning and see why they took that decision, rather than saying they took the wrong decision. Two, because people are looking, most people are complaining, are not looking at this chairmanship zone, they're looking at presidential. And I have a conviction that the presidency should be true. That's why I say should be thrown open to all, so I will get the best of the best amongst us and offer to Nigerians. So I don't want us to because that's my assumption, I might be wrong, that the agitation and what have you now is focused on zoning of chairmanship affecting where president comes from. And I can give you backlog of when it has happened that they are from the same area. And we came back later to look at it and balance it out. So I have a conviction that the best of the best is what Nigeria desire. That's what Nigeria deserves. We've been, unfortunately, going through the worst kind of governance for the party in the last 6 years. I'm an economist and I said something yesterday that we have borrowed more than we have borrowed in 30 years, under 5 years. What we have borrowed in 5 years is double what we borrowed in 30 years before now. So we should be focused on these issues and realize that we must present a robust alternative to Nigerians and genuinely execute those alternatives. Because I will not be partial to those who just want to have power for the sake of having PDP in power. I will regret it if we get to power we do not deliver, to make Nigerians realize that we did wrong. We assume wrongly when we voted you out. That is my concern.
Mr. Fabi, first he says, look, if you don't get A, you get B. So are you bent on getting A? And if that's the case, he says, look, left to him, he would like it to be thrown open to all. That's the number one position. Would that make you happy?
Chimbali, from my conversation, I have not even spoken about where presidency goes or not. I've never said something like that because as far as I know, the party has said no. The job of this committee was just to talk. I was just to decide on the party elective offices, not even the president. And that aside, I don't even want to go there. Because I understand one fact. Zoning is an internal structure, internal rules of the party. But when it comes to Nigeria, whoever emerges as the president will not be a president of the PDP or president of APC. He will be a president of Nigeria. So I don't want to talk about that. But the truth of the matter is that I'm happy that Honorable Yusuf mentioned something, interest. And that's exactly what I'm saying. There are divided interests on this matter. And I'm surprised that he's trying to just brush it aside as if it doesn't matter. To me, it matters a lot. All right? I just said, as a member of this party, I am not happy that at this point in time, my zone that has not had the opportunity of producing the party chairman has been skimmed out. I have right to say that it's an interest. It may not be his own interest. And this is what I'm trying to say. As far as I know, what I want the party to do is to realize that whatever they want to do, all the interest must be considered. And they must take their decision based on, equal balancing. What the zoning, it has become a culture that has helped in fostering equitable, democratic representation and all that. We have to remember this. I'm sure Honorable Yusuf knows this game very much as I do. So we don't have to deceive ourselves. There are issues, and I hope the party will be able to, stand up to it and do that. Now, again, let me say this to our leaders. I don't want us to make one mistake, and the mistake is trying to, give the incoming National Working Committee of the party a very difficult jungle to clear. I want a situation whereby the incoming NWC would have the opportunity to be free of any, at least, all these issues that will make them not concentrate on the bigger picture, which is the election itself in 2023. We have to be mindful of this. And this must shape our decision. Don't give these guys things that will make them not concentrate on the bigger picture.
Gentlemen, we're winding down now. So, Mr. Fabi, let me ask you quickly. Are you trying to let us believe that you prefer your region to get the chairmanship as opposed to the #1 slot? Because we know in politics, one step always
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. My zone has produced the president. We have other zones that have not produced the president. We have the southeast, we have the northeast, we have the north central. They haven't produced the president. But when you go this route, what does that mean? Everybody can understand where that
for some people that may mean that
my own is that my zone
for some people that may mean that if your zone produces the president, you have so many people who will queue up and say, okay, well, if the South has the president, the North should get the presidency.
It's unfair. It's unfair to other zones that have not produced. What, is it bad for my zone to produce the chairman? I'm not saying I don't want my zone to produce the president. But what I'm saying that it's unfair to those other zones that have not produced. So let them give them the chance. If you're talking of equity, if you're talking of fairness, if you're talking of justice, let's give them the opportunity to be able to produce the president. So this is exactly what I'm saying. We don't have a southern Nigeria or a northern Nigeria. It's only, that's why you should be able to fight. You can start fighting.
Right. So I find this quite interesting.
Bringing another Nigeria to come and impose on southern Nigeria.
Pardon me, I find this quite interesting because, I mean, you have said that, I mean, the president will not be the president of the PDP, for example. He has to be the president of Nigeria. So there's internal party trends. I mean, which region has produced the chairman and the candidates for positions. And there's a general atmosphere in the country. So your position, saying that it should be thrown open, do you think that aligns with the, do I say the climate right now in the country? Because that will play a major factor in whatever happens with the PDP's bid for presidency. Eventually, you present your candidate to Nigerians to vote. So what you're asking for, do you think that aligns with the current trend and trajectory in the nation right now?
Exactly. I agree with him that the presidency should be thrown open. I agree with that. Do you understand? So, but let the zone that have not produced chairman produce their own chairman. You can still throw it open if it goes there.
Okay, we need to wrap up.
Okay, why did you zone to the north? Okay,
Honorable Yusuf, you maintain your stance, or what do you think?
I have to appeal to my brother that it's not possible to have a political party without cleavages and interest. And it's not possible when the election is coming on to have this kind of agitation. But it will do us good if we allow the process to be concluded. The zoning committee position is not casting iron. Who says that if they get to next meeting today and those who want otherwise prevail? But what will happen to what we are already discussing in this industry? So I have to appeal that we should know that this is in process and that I, as a party man, do not doubt the capacity of the party to take the right decision. That's my conclusion.
All right, and so we'll look forward to that. I mean, we'll keep our eye on that and see how it plays out. So, Honorable Tajuddin Yusuf, member of the House of Representatives, as well as Mr. Dimeji Fabi, who is a member of the party and a member of the Edo Governorship Screening Committee. Thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Let's now take a look at some of possible declaration of a state of emergency in Anambra. This first one, that is what it's about, and you get to see it from Waribo, who says, Anambra state of emergency threats Borno. Okay, no, I'll go again. State of emergency in Anambra State, Borno State, Zamfara State, Katsina State, Kano, and Kaduna States. Worse than Anambra State.
Perhaps state of security, he meant to say, in those states.
Oh, yeah. The current situation in those states is worse than that of what's playing out in Anambra State. Right. And so he thinks, well, they should do the same in those states as well. Yeah. I think that's what he's trying to point out.
Incidentally, he's not alone on that table. But this one by Don Nicholas says about the same issue. FG is so quick to make decisions or threats to take certain grievous stands when it concerns Southeast. but turn a blind eye with other regions, especially the northern region. The issue of state of emergency should not be the case in Anambra, except it is politically motivated to rig the November 6th election. Anambra state security situation hasn't yet reached the height to warrant a state of emergency. FG should focus more on tackling the root cause of the agitations in the southeast instead of issuing threats for the interest of peace.
Well, Frank Obat gives a very interesting perspective. You know how they refer to entities as she? Well, he thinks the FG is a he. Says FG clearly shows that he doesn't like the Southeasterner and willing to display security agencies, or deploy rather, just to have a state as APC state, because to him, he doesn't understand why the state of emergency should be declared. What happened in Zamfara, Sokoto, Kaduna, Niger State, and just show clearly their agenda. Now that's what Frank Obat thinks this morning.
Okay, I'm trying to see.
We're taking.
Okay, this is from Festus. Well, he says, what, have we taken that one? No. While our president has the power to declare a state of emergency in any part of our country, he should be reminded that emergency power are only intended to be used in exceptional circumstances. While there are man-made threats, killing of prominent people, destruction of annexed properties in Anambra State, a state of emergency would not be proportionate to the threats.
Olakunju Oladele says about the same issue, evidently a state of emergency is enshrined under our constitution, which gives specific powers to the president. Some measures may be built on a fundamentally flawed vision of what to fear during a political crisis. If left unchecked, these emergency powers are prone to abuse, and what started as an exception can frequently become the norm.
Jean Lugolo also defers to the Constitution, specifically Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution, emphasized that a proclamation of state of emergency should only be made in extreme circumstances. Although it is not clear what information is at the disposal of the federal government that informs the probability of a state of emergency expressed by the Attorney General, it will be good if the federal government takes steps to stop insecurity in the state instead of declaration of state of emergency, or at least a planned declaration of state of emergency in view of the derogation of fundamental human rights that comes with the state of emergency.
Well, this next one is from Adeni. He says the taxes, I was talking about the revised MTEF. He says the taxes would have been a very good avenue for the government to improve its finances and also provide basic amenities of life for the people. But unfortunately, the average Nigerian entrepreneur cannot even afford to run his business successfully, let alone pay his taxes. The economy chokes you. You find it very difficult to breathe. Many of us are already in debt. And even when the taxes are collected, they are never used for the purpose for which they are meant for. It is a very precarious situation.
On the same issue, no, this is different. I think he's talking about the politics. Joshua Badong says, it's obvious to the public that the so-called giant political parties, APC and PDP, have since lost the masses' trust and confidence. They practically have nothing to offer Nigerians. It's high time we turn our searchlight to a party that has all it takes to give Nigerians some hope.
But when they open doors for registration, you keep seeing people register, so...
For the party or for voting?
No, for party.
Party registration.
Well, maybe those ones are not talking yet.
Okay. Chukwuma Itai, if we have time for this one, says, one interesting thing about a program like Sunrise is that it brings people to either say the truth or lie and enables viewers to know who is saying the truth and who is not. From the views of the two men from APC this morning, we know who is saying the truth and who is not.
Well, this last one from AGK says, talking about Anambra state of emergency, says, for many people, perception is reality. The attitude of the federal government towards southeastern Nigeria continues to indicate a campaign of suppression. If the FG has a different intention, let them change their attitude, and perhaps the perception of people will change.
You wonder what people will make of the president's visits to Imo State, because, I mean, that happened as well.
And he may yet even have another visit, who knows, before the year ends. You never know. So, well, there you go. That is the show today. Many thanks for your messages. We'll see you again next time. I'm Chamberlain.
I'm Kairi Okikulu.
And I'm Ayo Makine. Do have a wonderful day.